I want to do things a little differently today. Today, we're going to be looking at a few of the things that I happen to stumble across on my boomer feed. I mean, technically it's my Facebook feed, but the kinds of people who tend to frequent Facebook tend to be a little boomery. So, you know, that's where I'm at right now. Axo says, okay, my Chromebook updated itself, so now I have to use the site Twitch, which means I can see what I'm typing. You can see what I'm typing. Ah, I see. You still decided not to proofread what you said regardless. Jessica says, let me guess, AI slop. So, not this time. I've gone over so much AI slop recently that I kind of want to detox from it a little bit, and we're going to be going into some other stuff that is still dumb and silly and bad, but not quite the AI slop. That said, I want to get into fan art first. So, for those who would like to see the fan art, let me know in the comment section below. But regardless of what you say, it's happening anyway. So this one is from Zoe, and they said that they felt the sudden urge to redraw their old MS Paint Suris art. So here's a side to side. So here's the original one, and here is the new one. You know what? Let me know what y'all think, because I like the eyes more in this one, but I like the line work more in this one personally. Maybe I'm just a sucker for like nice, big, thick lines, but still, I think the expression is way better on the new one, even if I like the line work more on the old. Anyway, as always, thank you for your fan art submission. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. Now that that's all out of the way, I'm sorry, but we gotta talk about this. So, this was a very, very strange thing to see, only because I've noticed for some reason my Facebook feed is filled to the brim with just random conservative nonsense, and I feel like it wasn't that way like 3 or 4 years ago, back when I used to actually frequent Facebook more. But now it's everywhere, and I think that's been a Zuck the Cuck thing. Alright, so this is a post from a influencer, micro-celebrity influencer, because she got 17k followers, so in the same double-digit with a bunch of zeros realm as me and Vice Rhino and others. And her post says, porn is harmless, in quotation marks, because she actually wants to be fighting against that particular argument. Tell that to the woman who hasn't been touched by her husband in months. Tell that to the woman who cries in the shower wondering what's wrong with her body. Tell that to the woman who changed everything about herself and nothing changed. Tell that to the woman who found 200 tabs while she slept and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Tell that to the woman reading this right now with her stomach in knots. Tell it to her face. Alright, cool. Yeah, porn itself, the actual item, is harmless in the way that we typically understand a harmless substance. So, when I say that, I mean that porn is harmless in the same way that alcohol is harmless. There's plenty of harm that can come from alcohol, just as there's plenty of harm that can come from any substance. However, how one uses it, the rate at which one uses it, is what actually determines whether or not it is harmful, not the thing itself. If we want to talk about the things that are actually harmful where porn's concerned, we can talk about the industry and the problems that exist within it, the fact that there have been a lot of predatory practices within the pornography industry. We could also talk at length about the societal expectations that can get lumped on people if they grow up watching porn, as opposed to just existing out with real people in the real world. But let's tackle each of these one by one, and then we're going to actually look at a study that I decided to go ahead and read through, just to make sure that I was prepared for this one. So, tell that to the woman who hasn't been touched by her husband in months. So, you recognize that the porn is a release, right? If your husband is addicted, then that is a problem with your husband. The porn existing isn't going to change that. Whenever you say a statement like this, the follow-up question tends to be, what do you want to change about the world in order to facilitate this getting better? Or do you just want to yell into the aether? If you're saying porn is harmless, and you're trying to argue against that, then I would think that you're trying to argue that porn should be banned or more heavily regulated, something like that. But This sounds like something that you and your husband should tackle in couples therapy. Unless, of course, you just accidentally found out your husband's ace, because there are situations where somebody is ace but still craves a release, but does not necessarily want the touchy-feely stuff that comes with sex. So, I don't know, couples counseling sounds like the thing that you need to do here, as opposed to pointing your finger at other naked women existing. Then we have tell the woman that who cries in the shower wondering what's wrong with her body. You know, honestly, this is the one that I can kind of get on board with, because if for some reason your partner is utilizing porn to determine what their expectations of you should be, then yeah, your husband needs to go get a brick thrown through his left eye. I'm sorry, but there are very few of us who are dating people who model or act in porn. There's a shockingly low number of people in the world. So trying to use those standards for anybody else is, yeah, kind of silly. But again, that's a problem with your husband and the fact that they have a idealized version of you that they want you to try to achieve, as opposed to the person who's actually there with them right now. Yeah, it's taking accountability away from the husband. 100%. Fennec says, I mean, I've done that, but not because of porn. I did it because my ex was probably and probably still is an abusive ass. So then we have tell that to the woman who changed everything about herself and nothing changed. If you changed everything about yourself in order to better adhere to pornographic standards, then I'm sorry, but that speaks more to your own personal insecurity than anything else. Like, you just recognized that the problem is probably between the keyboard and the chair, both for you and for your husband. Like, this is just your insecurity. This is a thing to go to therapy about. If you want to change, the right reason to change is because you dislike a part about yourself and you would like to improve it. If you find yourself to be a more toxic person and you want to change that aspect of your personality, that's something worth changing. If you do not like that you are overweight and you want to become healthier, that's something that's worth changing. But if the reason that you are trying to change yourself is, I saw a model with gigantic tits she got from surgery and a flat stomach, and I would like to look like her, I'm sorry, but that, again, just speaks to your personal insecurity. You are yourself. The random porn model is the random porn model. Nelson says, but what if both partners like porn? Yeah, there's a whole lot of gray area here, too. I could speak to... All right, so I could speak to the fact that me and my girlfriend both tend to really enjoy hentai. Like, a lot. To the point where when we went to MomoCon, Saki had me buy her a gigantic Cynthia blanket from Pokemon that has her in just one of the most revealing skimpy bikinis ever. And she absolutely adores that, mostly because she wants Cynthia to step on her, and honestly, I agree. But, yeah, what happens when you've got somebody who is also into the pornography as well? I don't know. Then we have tell that of the woman who found 200 tabs while he slept and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Okay, so realistically, there is no number that you could throw here that would change this. Like, you discovered that your husband watches porn. Like 98% of sexual men on the planet. And instead of recognizing that that is a fairly normal, fairly banal thing that happens with so many people, you instead decided to turn it into a giant moral panic. Also, yeah, that guy must have a lot of RAM. Fennec says, I mean, there's a whole genre of spicy books, which I would argue are also a form of porn. Oh, yeah, no, 100%. 100%. So, like, I have gotten off to reading porn. 110%. I think smut is pornography in the same way that actual images and hentai are also pornography. It's what it is. That's just my personal take, but I also don't think that porn is the problem there. Axo says, as long as it's not CSAM, just have a convo with him. Why can hets never just communicate? Yeah, again, this feels like one of those failure to communicate things. Like, very bad. Orla says, I like audio porn the best. Audio porn doesn't do it for me. I don't know if it's just, like, the way that they act in it, but, like, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not. Isabel says, I used to jerk to the sexual stuff in the Bible when I was a repressed Protestant. All right, you, Isabel, I'm sorry, you need... Seek God. Seek God. That we need to have a come to Jesus moment, and we need to spell come correctly. Otherwise, I'm scared of what this is going to look like for both of us. Jassa says, see Sam in legit non-con. Yeah, like, if the porn itself is immoral, if the act that is being done is legitimately immoral, as opposed to, like, it's a couple of people age playing, or it's a couple of people role playing non-con, then, yeah, that is a thing as well that needs to be handled. Someone says, you could not have waterboarded that out of me. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Jessica Davis says, my parents freaked out when I first started watching porn. I was 15. I'm 26 now, and my dad freaks out whenever it comes up. Jesus Christ, but To be fair, my parents don't know that my girlfriend has shot porn, and that is how a decent bit of her income comes from. Like, that's not a thing that they know, but Isabel says, we all started somewhere. Yeah, my start was... God, what was my start? Was it Dark Magician Girl? Pretty sure it was Dark Magician Girl. I'm actually like 99% certain it was Dark Magician Girl and Taya Gardner. Probably. I mean, I know that realistically it was Rouge the Bat. Like, I know that that was the awakening, but outside of that, I think Dark Magician Girl and Taya Gardner probably definitely got up there. To quote Sheriff Buford T. Justice, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And then we have... the final two. Tell that to the woman reading this right now with her stomach in knots. Yeah, women in my chat reading it right now. Is your stomach in knots because of this, or is it because the world outside is on fire? Because I'm fairly certain it's the latter for most of you. But then again, you do watch the channel with the giant big-tittied anime guy, so I don't know what you're talking... I don't know what to do with that. Isabel says, my pansexual awakening was Felix Hargel. Robbie says, Suris is a furry confirmed. No, it's because we're going to die due to Trump. Raka says, no, in reality, I ate moldy bread. That's why your stomach's in knots? Why did you eat moldy bread? What are you, trying to cosplay the one white-haired guy from Castlevania in the prison? Because, like, I mean, to be fair, that guy did win the second best woman in that entire series, but irrespective of that. Sephi says, sir, is just accepted already? No. Raka says, it was an accident? Bro is eating Asmongold's house. Oh, God, somebody's going to turn that into a drywall joke and or fan art. I know it. Always. Morbid says liking furries doesn't mean you're a furry. Yeah, no. So I have had relations with several furries. It does not mean I'm a furry. Axa says, Suris, legit, I have to throw out cheese before my family eats it because they'll eat the mold. Yeah, no. But, okay, so that's my personal take on all of this. However, I also wanted to go ahead and take a look at a study about this. Now, this study is pornography consumption and cognitive affective distress. So this actually goes into the neurological phenomena that happen in the body when one consumes porn at various amounts. Now, if you want to read the study for yourself, you can. It's on PMC. You just type in the name of the study on Google and then type PMC afterwards and you will find the study. But let's go ahead and move down to the conclusion real quick so we can kind of talk about what really is going on here. So, remember, when we're using the term harmful, I am using the term harmful in the same way that we talk about alcohol being harmful. A harmful substance, but a benign and accepted substance, generally speaking, that can be consumed responsibly. So, recent findings indicate that excess pornography consumption may significantly negatively affect the sexual development in childhood and adolescence by influencing unrealistic gender stereotypes and patterns of behavior. Okay? So, don't let children watch porn. That's kind of a standard that we all already held. And although it still does not represent a diagnostic entity, it may have serious mental health consequences. According to the current DSM-5, dependence on online pornography doesn't represent a separate syndrome. But as some researchers and clinicians suggest, it can be included as part of hypersexual disorder. So, again, the problem here is not the porn or it existing, or even its consumption. The problem here is a previously existing issue that it is significantly exacerbating. That it is diagnostically close to excessive sexual urge, also denoted as hypersexuality, representing enhanced but a non-violent manifestation of sexual behavior. In addition to ICD-10 and ICD-11 disease classifications of excess pornography consumption is described in the context of an impulse control disorder. So again, previously existing problem, the porn is not the problem. This form of disorder is characterized by a persistent pattern of failure to control intense, repetitive sexual impulses or urges leading to repeated sexual behavior. According to ICD-11, this pattern of failure to control intense sexual impulses or compulsions and the resulting repetitive sexual behavior manifests itself over an extended period of time and causes significant suffering or significant disruptions in personal, family, and social life. So, once again, if you are pointing your finger at the porn, I understand that's what you want to do, but the data does not seem to suggest that. The actual studies on this suggest that there are previously existing disorders which need to be addressed, which, if you were to eliminate the porn, they would simply find some other vice for that particular release. The pornography is, in every way, shape, and form, a scapegoat here. Although addiction to pornography is still not recognized as a disorder, it may represent severe social and epidemiological problem. Mainly because some findings suggest that the viewing of pornography in, once again, childhood and adolescence may negatively influence forming of sexual identity and relationships due to unrealistic gender stereotypes of pornographic roles, relations, and physical perfectionism and unrealistic body image. So, your husband getting unrealistic expectations due to pornography, that is an issue, but we mostly find that issue when their schema of what an ideal woman looks like is based on porn first and foremost. Access says porn addiction isn't special, no addiction is special. I mean, I would argue that there are certain addictions that are special when they are chemical addictions that are special, because certain chemicals can have effects on the body over and above the psychological. But anyway, in this context, pornography creates an unnatural and unreal culture of sexualization and body dissatisfaction, which is likely related to increasing numbers of plastic surgeries among young females focused on breast and labiaplasty surgery, which are expected to create physical ideals of young women, and a similar trend was observed also in men. This pornography-related perfectionism may be linked to narcissistic tendencies, and some studies indicate that sex addiction is positively related to narcissism. So, again, porn not the problem, previously existing issues being exacerbated. This is like the AI psychosis thing, where a person who has AI psychosis typically already had a bunch of underlying issues that were going unaddressed, and all that happened is that their excess messing with AI caused them to exacerbate their previously existing problem. As related to pornography, the physical perfectionism may implicate increased prevalence of narcissistic tendencies and personality disorders in populations, with later consequences in individual ontogenesis. So I'm actually not familiar with this word. And I'm going to go ahead and do what conservatives usually don't do. When I see a word I don't understand, I'm going to go ahead and Google it. The development history of an individual organism covering growth, fertilization, and maturation. So, again, we're talking about children. We're talking about development, not adults. Cool. When this artificial body perfectionism will be lost. Okay. We can expect severe consequences of the internet pornography exposure and addiction at approximately from 10 to 30 years from now, when generations mostly affected by pornography consumption will experience body image dissatisfaction at their middle age or later, which may influence future epidemic of mental disorders, mainly depression and anxiety, and increase suicidal tendencies in population. So, what this is meaning, again, is that the pornography itself is exacerbating problems that need to be addressed. Like we talked about with this, especially with part 3, Tale of the Woman Who Changed Everything About Herself and Nothing Changed, if you already have an insecurity problem, then watching a ton of pornography may not help that. But once more, that is not the existence of naked women on the internet and naked men on the internet. That is not a problem of that simply existing. That is a problem of access to it at younger ages. Now, what this doesn't mean is that we should be age restricting those websites with IDs and verification, because we also need to recognize right now that despite the best intentions of people when it comes to that, that is basically just handing even more and more of your information to the fucking government, who does not need all that information, and capitalists who want to use that information to prey on you and sell things to you. Jessica says, porn, where dreams come true, coming to a theater near you. So look, fun fact, without Earthbound, we wouldn't have Undertale, and without Undertale, we wouldn't have Deltarune. And without a singular Japanese guy stumbling upon a porn booth when he was a child, we wouldn't have Earthbound. Because Gygus is based off of the trauma of him stumbling into that booth. That is not me saying that we should have children watching that in any way, shape, or form. I just thought that would be a fun fact for those of you who might not know about that little chain of history. Said, it's always my mental health problems are because of porn and never we need to reform the porn industry. Raka says, oh, I remember that. Yeah, bit of fucked up lore there. Axa says, sex ed should just talk about safe porn consumption, assuming that it's going to happen because teenagers will find it. Right, so if we understand, like at a base level, that porn is going to be consumed by people who shouldn't consume it, it's very, very hard to stop people from doing it, then we need to make sure that conversations are happening with people earlier on. When I was in Pensacola Christian Academy, when I was growing up in that school, we didn't get sex ed class. They straight up did not give us sexual education because they believed abstinence was the only way to curb things like STDs and pregnancy and behaviors they did not like. The problem is, abstinence-only education doesn't do fucking shit in any way, shape, or form. But when you grow up in a world that has that, you end up having really, really weird understandings of what porn is, isn't, should be, what's considered okay, what's considered not okay. But if we have a comprehensive sex ed class that goes over that, that gets a little better. But no, instead we got a pearl clutch about it. And yeah, there's a part of this that is me biased as somebody who consumes a decent bit of porn. And again, part of the income of our house from my girlfriend is related to porn. But at the same time, I'm also willing to back up everything I say with studies and reports and actual information, as opposed to just freaking out about something in general. Again, I'm willing to feed the argument that porn is harmful. But again, it is harmful in the same way that alcohol is harmful. Which means we need to talk better about regulating the industry around it, and less about pointing to it as if it's some demon. Tazor says, I draw porn, but I don't want to have sex. Yeah, again, I've noticed things in my life. The ace people in my life tend to draw more naked people than anybody else. Stop says, I draw porn and want to have very impossible sex. Yeah, some of us are fucked up. Said, hell, ATP, everything is harmful, too much. Pernia says, I feel called out. Yeah. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.